Hello everyone, it's Grandmama. Time for another story from a Hometown Scrapbook by Ben Weatherwax. Today's story, Grays Harbor Country Club. Hello there. Can you imagine a game that was considered a yardstick of progress for Grays Harbor at one time long ago? No, not baseball, the national game, nor in fact any other so-called major sport. It was the old Scotch game, played with clubs and tees, the old St. Andrew's game of golf that was once pointed to as evidence that Grays Harbor had gotten out of the sawdust days and become a progressive community. It's more of a story than you think, probably because, like most stories that we enjoy, it's the story of a man. And this man is the man who managed to get into and out of Grays Harbor activities and always leave his mark. For the story of the coming of golf to Grays Harbor is the story of Grays Harbor's Country Club. And the story of that club is the story of a little man we discussed once before, the one-time harbor banker, W.J. Billy Patterson. So, when Dick Crombie has taken his customary few seconds for our sponsor, we'll tell you the story of the Grays Harbor Country Club, how it came to be, how golf came to Grays Harbor, and what Billy Patterson had to do with it all. Here's Dick Crombie and a few words from our sponsor. In our day, golf has become anyone's game. You can play it and I can play it. High school students belt the little white spheres around the course with men in their 70s. Bankers play alongside radio announcers and industrialists with laborers. On the golf course, a low score round is the measure of accomplishment. Not how many cars a man or a woman may have, what kind of income tax they pay, or how many clubs they have in their bag. But there was a time when it was different. It was probably the cost of setting up the golf course out here in the big timber country that made it a rich man's game. Except on the prairies near Elma or the lowlands near the beaches, there just wasn't any land around the harbor where a man could play golf if he wanted to. So the old Scot game did not penetrate into the harbor region in the first years of the century, when the rest of the West was taking up the game. That is, it didn't until one day in 1909, when Billy Patterson was visiting friends in Seattle. They invited him out to the club, as they called it, which turned out to be a golf club. And once the Aberdeen banker was on the grounds, they invited him to play. His friends knew that he had never held a golf club in his hands. Moreover, that he considered the game to be for small boys and nincompoops. Moreover, he had told them so. Now, they proposed to show the little Aberdonian how really complex was the game of golf and how much pleasure a man could derive from playing it. But Patterson stuck to his argument. It was not and never would be a man's game, he prophesied, and only with considerable urging was he even attracted onto the course. But finally, to be a good guest, he walked around the course with his friends while they played, and he noted the grist of the game. He made so bold as to offer other suggestions on how his friends could improve their game. He had, as he said, played baseball quite a bit down in Aberdeen and felt that the games were enough alike that anyone could swing a bat, could swing a golf club. He was playing into the willing hands. His friends led him on, and he became expansive in his advice. And finally, they asked him to show them, take a club in his hand and actually demonstrate how to play the game of golf. It was a challenge, and Patterson was not a man to back away from a challenge. He took the club and addressed the unfamiliar pellet on the tee of the Seattle course. And at that minute, although it was to take time and develop into a long story, golf came to Grays Harbor. For after detailing the stance a good baseman and comparing the effectiveness of a good swing with a hickory bat with the good swing of a good golf club, the Aberdeen banker proceeded to club that ball, which dribbled off the tee and rolled a mean 10 feet while his friends roared with laughter. Now some men would have taken their whipping and never come back for more, but not Billy Patterson. There was an air of defiance about every golf ball that he saw from that day forward. It challenged him, and he acquired a set of clubs and a membership in the Seattle organization, and when time permitted, he scurried to Seattle and whacked away at that little pill. Billy later admitted that once he had tried it, he became wild about golf. Now, Billy Patterson was a doer, as anyone who knew him will recall, and when the game had gotten a good hold on him and he found himself finding excuses to get away to Seattle to play a round of golf, he thought it was time to share his experience with his friends. Through the fall of 1910, he prowled the logged-off lands of the harbor looking for a cleared area that might be suitable for a golf course. He inspected farms and pastures. They were low or not large enough. He brought his golfing associates down from Seattle to help him, and they made suggestions. And finally, the one-man committee to popularize the old Scott game in the Sawdust community settled on a tract of land on the old Montesano Aberdeen Road, above tidewater, with rolling hills and a couple of streams, except for a small portion that had been cultivated, well sprinkled with charred stumps and dead snags, looking like most logged-off land of the county. Early in 1911, the one-man committee began the job of clearing the land and preparing it for a golf course. Up until this time, Billy Patterson had kept his secret pretty much to himself. Of course, his close friends knew about it, and though Billy was going a little far with his self-indulgence, but it was nothing to be compared with the community project. In fact, no one had contributed a dime to the cost of the venture except the golf-playing banker. By now, he opened it up to his friends and proposed the organization of a corporation, the sale of stock for membership. The proposition sounded good from all the parts of the county, and his friends subscribed with funds for the incorporation. But still, the Aberdeen banker was a wheel horse, and when the funds raised through the sale of stocks proved inadequate, he used his own funds to complete the course. In 1912, a foursome headed by Billy Patterson set out to make the first tour of the new links. Golf had come to Grays Harbor. It was still somewhat an outing to go to the club for a round the game. There were no clubhouses, and a converted barn served to provide a few members with shelter from the infrequent showers while they braved the course of the game. Moreover, Grays Harbor golfers were 90% beginners, and the rough rounds of the fairway was alive with golfers searching for lost balls. But time, as it does with most things, brought experience and finesse to the doofers, and the game became a respected pastime with those who had the time, the cars, and the membership. In 1916, when the war clouds were blowing in the direction of the United States, Banker Billy got an idea. There was no camaraderie in the converted barn. What the country club needed was a clubhouse with a few trimmings. He had gathered his idea from country clubs all over the Northwest, from Vancouver to Portland. Now he incorporated them in a clubhouse, which was equally ambitious. And again, Billy the banker footed the bill. 60-odd stockholders in the club all made token contributions, but Billy's ambition for his pet hobby were far ahead of the cash on hand, and he wrote the check for the new project, which incidentally, complete with locker rooms, showers, lounge, and accommodations for the club's employees, climbed to the staggering 1916 total of $10,000. It brought the club's total outlay, 90% carried by Patterson, to nearly $60,000 for their 9-hole golf course and the clubhouse complete. And for nearly 10 years, the country club, whose membership soared to more than 100 by the early 20s, was the only place where golfers could play in the county, short of the impoverished course at Tokeland. It made golf a rich man's sport, and except for the caddies who lugged the bags around the course, the average man knew golf only by reputation. And then came the lusty 1920s. In the aftermath of the war, golf took a booming rise. It started in California, where golf courses were built in wholesale quantities. It moved north with leaps, and on one stride was right in the middle of Grays Harbor. Golf courses began to blossom on every level slice of acreage, and some not so level. The Beachway Golf Course was laid out by Aberdeen architect R.H. Dobell on what the harbor called the Book Ranch. The 9 holes were scattered amongst the sloughs and bogs of South Harbor area. The Port Dock course came into being along a side of the slip of the new Port of Grays Harbor Terminal. A pasture land west of Elma was converted to a golf course, and an elegant designed and ambitious layout was started on the hills behind Cosmopolis to be known as the Highlands. But the summer of 1926, Grays Harborites were batting the little white sphere around the pasture, swamps, industrial areas, and hillsides, and everyone who didn't play golf was caught in the conversation about it, because few were the families that did not have a representative duffing it on the greens and fairways of the county. Moreover, the harbor was beginning to make a name for itself in the golfing world. Banker Billy, who had fathered the game on Grays Harbor, now sponsored tournaments at the country club greens, and some of the best-known golfers of the Northwest called Grays Harbor home. Jim Fuller, one of the earliest members of the country club, set the pace for left-handed, and Walter Foredge, ranked as one of the best on the coast, had come to the harbor to make his home, bringing his talented putter. The country club pro, Morty Dutra, was a figure in national tournaments, and an Aberdeen man called Henny Schmidt kept the harbor in the running in many a coast tournaments. And then the craze frothed over into the semi-ridiculous, but of the South that had produced the storm of new golf courses came the final touch to carry the craze to the last fraction of the population still uninitiated to the grip of a putter and the thrill of smashing a drive. The Pee Wee Golf Course and the driving range came to fill the last gap, and Grays Harbor, like the rest of the country, went to the trimmings with vengeance. We'll look at that in a minute, but here, first, let's make room for Dick Crombie and a few words from our sponsor. Yes, Pee Wee Golf came to Aberdeen. The courses grew up out of vacant lots and towns and filled in on undeveloped corners through the city. At one time, the harbor had 9 Pee Wee courses, and its young people ran from one to another, putting and putting. Under the bright lights, they played at night, and when rain made daytime play difficult, one of the enterprising builders made a full-size building to house the 9 eccentric tees and greens. But the fad began to fade before the building was complete, and golf, as it became of age, settled down to serious play and dug its cleats into becoming another harbor institution. One by one, the new courses died a-browning until just 2 remained. The game had made its impression, which still holds today, and the story that is chronicled here tonight in our hometown scrapbook. Thanks for listening.